the anxiety of performing definitely like dwindled down as I grew up, and I was just more excited than anything. I think I was really in my element for sure.
She's a singer-songwriter from Cleveland, Ohio. You may know her from her songs "I Hate Strangers" or "Habits." Please welcome Kelsey Olivia to the podcast. How are you doing today?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. I'm great. Excited to have this conversation with you and, get a little behind the scenes to your music.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, what was your first experience with music like, or what made you first, get into music?
Yeah, I think I kind of always did some type of music, I guess. I mean, I was always a singer as a kid, I was always a writer. But my family, I have a very big family, and none of them are musicians. They're actually all um, athletes. So, me
Mhm.
kind of coming out of the gate with music was really, really interesting. But yeah, I kind of always was a singer, and I think I started writing when I was really young. I want to say like maybe 9 years old,
Mhm.
which sounds
Yeah.
odd.
Yeah. Well, being the only one in your family with music, was there any pushback when you sort of made it clear that music was what you wanted to do, or were they open to the
Mhm.
idea of you trying music?
My family was very supportive. So in the beginning, like I didn't, tell my extended family. They kind of didn't have any idea, but my immediate family, like they were very supportive of it. And so, um, yeah, I would say it was pretty easy. I mean, setbacks just come from, learning and moving forward and kind of doing it in a sense of like on my own. Um, so yeah.
Yeah. And so was there ever a thought of, following your family and, trying to do athlete or anything other than music, or was it just music from the start?
Um, no, it was just music. I never was athletic as a kid. I mean, I played a lot of sports. I was a cheerleader for a very long time of my life.
Mhm.
But, my family is filled with football players, volleyball players, soccer players. So, all good sports. But no, I was definitely the creative kid of the bunch.
Yeah. And did that sort of like slowly come naturally, or was there sort of a moment that made you say, "Hey, maybe like I think this is what I want to do. Like I think music is for me."
Yeah, sure. I think it just kind of happened naturally. It was something I always wanted to do. And in a weird sense, I had a lot of it planned out from a very early age. I mean, I didn't start recording music until early this year, so I was 18. But I remember, making Instagram handles and TikTok handles and Twitter handles of my music when I was 15 and keeping that,
Mhm.
because I knew I was going to do something with them. So it was, it kind of was a gradual expansion of what was going on, but I think I kind of always knew I'd be doing something with it.
Yeah, yeah, and so, like you mentioned, you're pretty new to, releasing music, recording, like, in a more professional way. What tips or advice would you give to other people, in that situation, just starting to release music and just
Yeah.
now starting to try to build their careers?
Yeah, I think one thing I would be cautious of that I'm learning is be very strategic about where you put your money. I think it's something that, a lot of people talk about or don't talk about in the right way, I would say. Like, no matter what financial background you come from, there's always a smart way to put your money somewhere. And I think just being cautious of what you're investing it in and what's worth it more, the advertisements for the equipment, and just kind of going back and forth with that. And as far as just releasing music is just I mean, I think just like not being afraid to do it. I mean, there's millions of people that do it every day, and like no matter kind of where you come from or your grounding, it's always, if it's authentic to you, there's a really high chance it's gonna be authentic to other people too, and
Yeah.
I would say just go for it, yeah.
Yeah, and, you know, being new in this space, have you stuck more to just recordings, or have you done any live performances, live shows like
Yeah.
that? And so
Yes.
what was your sort of first live show like?
Sure. So I actually did my first live show last week, funny enough. It was
Mhm.
in Columbus, Ohio. So I'm from Cleveland, Ohio, but I attend school in Columbus. And I opened for a wonderful, wonderful act. Her name is Marcy, Marci. She's great and she's very talented. And I got in contact with them. I played at the venue called The Basement. And I got in contact with them because what was I doing? Oh, there's the cover of my song "You Miss Me When I'm Famous," which just came out, details like a billboard with, like, my name on it, and it's a marquee, and we had some conceptual ideas for that, and we typically stick to, like, editing and just, putting stuff into already existing photos, but I was like, "I kinda wanna do something real and
Yeah.
kinda picturesque like that," so, there's a really popular venue down in Columbus called the Newport. It's a very famous venue, it's a very old venue. A lot of names have passed through there, and I kinda sent a Hail Mary email, and I, um it was like, "Hey," like, I reached out to them, was like, "Hey, would you mind, like, taking whatever artist name down and putting it up for a cover?" And they were so polite and so nice and reluctant to agree, and that's how we got that cover, and they actually referred me over to the other venue, The Basement, who reached out and was like, "Oh, we love your stuff, like, we'd love if you played." Um, so that was last week, so that was definitely super fun. I had a really fun.
Mhm. Yeah. And what was that sort of moment like for you when you first, got up there to perform?
It felt in a sense, it felt very, very relaxing. I know a lot of people, like, get very nervous before, like, they perform in front of people. I've never been that person. I think, you know, growing up doing talent shows and auditions for a bunch of things and, just trying to surround myself with a bunch of creative people, I think the anxiety of performing definitely, like, dwindled down as I grew up, and I was just more excited than anything. I think I was really in my element for sure.
This episode of the podcast is sponsored by BondTouch. BondTouch is committed to creating healthier and happier relationships, and in order to achieve that, they created the BondTouch. This bracelet is designed to bridge the distance between relationships by enabling touch to be sent over any distance. The app and services that come with the bracelet provide the intimate space relationships need to have fun, learn, and grow. BondTouch has over 1 million users and averages 2.5 million touches every week. The longest distance ever recorded between two touch band users were 12,000 miles. Use a BondTouch to send a touch to a loved one wherever, whenever. Defeat the distance by using BondTouch's app and bracelet to connect with others. Just wear a bracelet of your own that's paired with another and touch the screen to send their band vibrations that mimic your touch. Keep a special someone close with every touch kept in the app ready for replay. Decorate your devotion with unique styles, customizable bands, and custom message colors. Learn more about all features of the Bond Touch itself at bond-touch.com and use my discount code BondBBHeroic at checkout for 5% off any Bond Touch order. Go order a Bond Touch, Bond Touch More, or a Bond Heart now and use code BondBBHeroic for 5% off your order at checkout. You're still pretty early on, but has there been anything that sort of made you second guess or question if music really was the right path, or have you sort of just kept going at it and had a constant, flow of creativity?
Yeah, I don't think anything is questioned if I was going to stop it or not. I have definitely had my struggles with school. Obviously, juggling
Mhm.
a career with college is very difficult, and
Yeah.
it's not an easy thing to manage for anybody. And you know, it's not really heard of. There's a lot of musicians where it's like, oh, I don't do college, or I gave up on music to go to college,
Yeah.
and I'm really meshing those 2 right now, so it is a lot to handle. I'm very busy all the time, but, yeah, even though those are stipulations, I don't think that's ever made me question if what I was doing
Yeah,
was right. Yeah.
yeah. And so, sort of having the work ethic to keep going and try to balance those 2, is that persistence something that someone sort of inspired in you, or did you just find that within yourself to do it?
I think I just had that. I come from a really driven family, I think, especially my immediate family is very goal oriented, and I think it was just kind of instilled. I'm a very hard worker, kind of no matter like what you throw me in, I'm gonna give it 110%. So I think, mixing that with like the want to do music and the passion to do music, it kind of was a no brainer of how how
Yeah.
dedicated and stuff I was.
Yeah, and so you mentioned earlier that even before you really started releasing, you sort of planned things out, got like, a very important part, got the social media handles down. What sort of how have you used social media, and have you seen that help your career?
Yeah, social media is huge. I think, you know, there was a time and a place for live music and where live music was, one of the few ways that you could kind of share your stuff, but social media is huge. And, I don't have a huge social media following, but it is the best thing, I could have done. I think that's another tip I'd give to artists too is get on social media. Like, no matter where you are, what you're doing, at least have a handle for something.
Yeah,
It word spreads. I mean, I have analytics from Instagram and Facebook and Spotify, and just to see where your stuff goes because of social media to me is very cool. And it definitely plays a really, really big part in this machine of what I'm doing.
yeah, yeah, and so, for the actual music element of what you're doing,
Yeah.
when you're coming up with the idea for a new song, what does that look like? Where do you sort of start the process of a new song from?
Yeah. So, okay, it's kind of a tricky one. I'll typically hear a lot of the ways that I get inspired for things is actually through YouTube. Funny enough, like I know type beats are a really big thing, but I go through a ton of them and I'll just type in keywords and kind of listen for melodies and listen for something. And if I like something enough, I'll save it and I'll bring it to my producer and be like, "Hey, like I really like this. Like how can we play with this? How can we make it similar?" And as far as the writing process goes, it typically comes very easy. I know there's like times where I'll think of a certain chorus or a certain bridge or something and I'll write it down. Everything is in, my Google Docs and my voice memos is full of random things. Um yeah, and it just kind of builds its way up to there until it's a product that I can give out.
Yeah, yeah, and so when you're looking at these, type beats, what sort of artists or what styles are you looking for there?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So my genre is I like to say that it's pop overall, just because a lot of subcategories fit under that umbrella. And I have 4 songs released, and 2 of the 4 I would consider more pop punk, think like Jaden, Olivia Rodrigo, Paramore, Machine and Kelly, think that realm I would consider. The other one, like soft pop, so kinda like Khalid and Tate McRae, and the other one would kinda be a mix of both.
Mhm.
So when I type in these type beats, it's just typically I search artists of what I'm looking for. So if I was looking for something pop punk, I don't know, I would search Avril Lavigne or Paramore or something that some phrase or person that would embody what I'm thinking of, and people create so many new type beats every day. I have so many contacts of type beat producers that post on YouTube, and it's crazy what you could kind of find on there, but
Yeah, yeah, and right now you're working with other producers, but you're trying to learn music production for yourself. Once you sort of get a handle on it, are you still gonna try to collaborate, or do you wanna sort of try to take a more, single-minded approach?
yeah, yeah. So I was studying music production at my old university in Florida. The current university that I'm at doesn't offer music production as a field of study, just because
Mhm.
the school is not really made for that, and,
Yeah.
I I have a minor now in music business, essentially, um, which is really cool, but I do try to learn production every day and take tips and figure it out, and, I'll go into studios and I'll just sit and I'll just watch, and I'll watch my producer do things and try to pick out, what do I know? Oh, what does that do? And
Mhm.
kinda quiz myself in a way, but, um, yeah, it's a consistent learning process, and as far as if I would continue to collaborate with producers, I think absolutely. I love the collaborative process. It's my favorite thing
Yeah.
in the entire world. I'm so hands-on about it, and, I think as good as somebody is in their craft, it's really important to kind of mesh with other people and see, where their ideas are and, just if I recorded my first song in Florida and, how would it have sounded different if I recorded it here or somewhere else or with this person? I think is a really interesting thought process to kind of go about. So, yeah, I think I'll continue to collaborate with producers. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, with all this collaboration, all this inspiration you're getting from different sources, how do you, once you're inspired, sort of take what you're inspired by and put your own spin on it, make it sound, more like Kelsey Olivia than Paramore or Olivia Rodrigo?
Yeah, I think that part would be predominantly in lyrics. I think, in a lot of pop songs, you're gonna hear the same chord progressions, you're gonna hear the same hi-hats, the same drums, you're just gonna it all repeats itself in one form or another, and pop punk, I think, in a personal way, is definitely coming back in some elements, and,
Yeah.
it's gonna become not I don't think as popular as it once was, but it'll definitely be up there, so changing up musical elements can get a little tricky, but I think lyrically, just writing stuff that relates to me personally and relates to other people or situations that I know from other people, and just kinda having that, like, pop punk rock sorta mentality with, like, these very relatable lyrics, which I think is, slightly hard to come by, so
Mhm. Mhm. And so, with the music you have released already, is there anything that, performed better or worse than you initially thought it would?
yeah, so there's 2 songs that performed better than I thought, and there's 1 song that performed worse than I thought. So my first song, "I Hate Strangers," was something I wrote when I was 17, and when it
Mhm.
came out, a lot of people that I was my extended family, friends, hometown people, had no idea, and I kinda started a pseudo different life for myself down in Florida, so it was really, an odd thing for people at home to hear, and that, got really big just because of, I think, the pure shock that it brought to
Yeah.
people that I was doing it. It recently hit a little bit over 100,000 streams on Spotify, which is very nuts, and,
Yeah.
just crazy. Another song is a song that is no longer on Spotify due to streaming issues, but it's a song called "Lose Myself" that I don't talk about it much, but it performed very, very well within the first couple weeks, and, there were some streaming issues, and it had to unfortunately be removed from the platform, and it won't be making a return, but, yeah, that was definitely that was definitely a
Mhm.
weird one.
Yeah.
And, I think my second song, "Habits," was the first kind of pop punk bubble-esque song put out, and it doesn't do as well as the others. It was marketed a little differently than the others, I'm very strategic about that, and so that might have affected it, but a lot of people tell me that, like, "Habits" is their favorite, and it's really interesting to kind of be like, "Oh,
Yeah.
it's funny because that doesn't relate," but, yeah, definitely some interesting analytic
Yeah.
patterns.
And this song "Lose Myself" with streaming issues, I know it can get a little muddy, so you don't have to go too in
Yeah,
detail
sure.
if you can't, but what sort of problems arose with that? And,
Yeah.
what's sort of the motivation behind not making a return rather than trying to get it back?
Sure, sure, sure. So I am very strategic about my marketing and I'm very strategic about playlisting. And there's a lot of playlisters that reach out to me and like, "Oh, we love your music, like, we'd love to put you on." And, there was a point in time before the lose myself problem where I wasn't that cautious and I was just kinda like, "Okay, like, I like your platform, like, yes, you're free to use my music." That definitely caught up to me, and Lose Myself was reported for false streaming, meaning that there was somewhere in these playlists, whoever put my song on a playlist and was streaming it, um, was using bots, which essentially is kinda like it's just a software that plays the song on
Yeah,
repeat
yeah.
constantly, and under Spotify's, rules and things you oblige by, that's considered kind of illegal by Spotify in good reason. And I had no idea this was going on. I reached out to a bunch of playlisters that I knew had my music and was like, "Hey, what's going on?" And,
Yeah.
none of them reported anything, but Spotify's conduct saw it, and that unfortunately cannot make a return to the platform for that reason. So,
Are you a music artist trying to find a way to get your music on as many streaming platforms as possible? Then check out DistroKid. DistroKid is a super user-friendly and super easy-to-use service that will make your music available in stores like Spotify, Apple Music, iTunes, Amazon Music, YouTube, Snapchat, everything. Everything you could imagine, it's available. People will even be able to add your songs into their Instagram stories. DistroKid helps you with the distribution, monetization, and promotion of all of your music. Use the link in the description of this video for 7% off any DistroKid package you want. Pick from musician packages designed to help artists get their own music out there, or even get a label package where you can manage up to 100 artists from one profile. So that's more for like managers, labels, and you can also get the musician package that I mentioned earlier, which is more for artists, producers, things like that. And super easy, and you can get 7% off any package right now with the link in the description of this video. So once again, if you're looking for a way to get your music on as many streaming platforms as possible, I'm talking any platform you can think of, get DistroKid and get 7% off right now with the link in the description. Back to the program. In this situation, like, being sort of indirectly the reason, you can't, that's not really in your control at
yeah.
all. Are there any, changes or help that you think Spotify could implement to make sure, this doesn't happen to other artists, other songs?
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. I think one thing that I'm not sure if they did this or not,
Hmm.
there was a little bit of blurry communication, but I think them reaching out to the playlist themselves. So when we were going through this whole issue, I had to send, over playlists I knew I was on, contacts of them, how I got there, when it ended, very meticulous details, but it was made unclear to me if they reached out to the playlisters themselves, and the problem is kinda left on to the artist in a sense, and, um,
Yeah.
I think just if Spotify or any other platform that comes across this would investigate more with the people that created these playlists themselves, I think, it would be better because in a lot of these cases, and I'm not the only one, a lot of times it's not the artist's fault, and it's
Yeah.
it's hard, but yeah.
Yeah. And so, I mean, it could be Lose Yourself or any of these other songs, but do you have a song that would sort of best summarize your sound, or pick a song to say, like, sort of, this is Kelsey Olivia?
Yeah, I think the recent one, I think "You'll Miss Me When I'm Famous" is something that was really funny. The name of it wasn't not going to stay. I thought of the chorus when I don't even know what I was doing. I think I was home. I was here, and I was just walking around my kitchen, I think, and words started flying out of my mouth, and I was like, "Oh, write that down," and
Yeah.
I did, and it was a really interesting process of creating that song, and I think every song that we create gets better, which is all you can kind of hope for. So I think, production wise and lyric-wise and just an overall sound-wise for me, I think this song would be it, yeah.
Yeah. And so if you, sort of got this magical opportunity to make a song with any artist, any band in the world, who do you think you would wanna collaborate with and why?
Yeah, that's really tricky. Actually, I've never been asked that question. Oh god, okay, I'm gonna give, like, maybe 2 or 3 answers just because I'm
Yeah,
very
that's fine, that's
okay,
fine.
good. Okay, the first one I'm gonna go with is Machine Gun Kelly, and anybody who knows me know that I love him. So so I think that's a pretty obvious one. I think Olivia Rodrigo is a pretty good one too. I think lyrically and stuff, she'd be really fun to work with, and
Mhm.
I think a little left field, I'd probably say Khalid. Khalid, I think lyrically and just how fun his songs are and the relevance behind a lot of them is really cool, and I think collaborating with somebody in that mindset, in that headspace would be super fun.
Yeah, yeah, and a lot of those artists are definitely also seem to be artists that sort of have taken chances or, like, not just stuck to one genre, one type of thing. They've experimented with different kinds of things, which
Yeah.
I'm sort of getting the sense that is something you wanna explore also in your career.
Yeah, I think, staying under the pop umbrella is really important for me. I don't think I'll ever stray from pop music, but yeah, I think it for sure plays a role in it. Machine Gun Kelly went from, back and forth a little bit from rap and pop punk, and so did Khalid with, R&B and bedroom pop, and, so did Olivia Rodrigo doing some, Paramore-esque songs and songs
Mhm.
that are ballads. It's really cool. It's really an interesting process to me, but it's definitely something that I'm kind of experimenting in, and, we'll see hopefully where those genres kinda coincide in some place.
Yeah, yeah, and in terms of, live performances moving forward, do you have any sort of, like, bucket list or dream venues that you would love to perform at?
Yeah. Well, the Newport, which is what I mentioned earlier, that was in
Yeah,
Columbus. It's an older venue, but it's a very, popular venue. It's a venue that a lot of big people have passed through, and it's, very timeless. I think a very corny one, but a very true one is Madison Square Garden. I'm sure you've
yeah,
heard that a lot. That would be super cool, and I think just here in Cleveland, the Q or oh, I'm sorry, it's, what's it called now? Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse is what it's called now, and Brown
yeah,
Stadium. I think those venues are always super cool every time I'm there, and yeah, I think that would be very fun.
yeah. And so when you go to these places, are you sort of imagining it like if you got the chance to perform there, do you have, images in your mind or is it just, oh, this is like sort of a venue that means something to me. I'd love to play there one day.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, like, every time I go to a show, like, I take notes on everything. I'm consistently
Hmm.
taking mental notes, and, um, it you know, it's just super cool to kinda think about, and it's, like, set-wise and stuff. I was at a show the other week. I was at Conan Gray, and he had a lovely, lovely opener. I believe her name was Casey Hill. She had this, like, beautiful blue kind of set, like, all the lights were blue, and blue, for anybody who might not know, is kind of like a staple color for my brand as an artist, and I take so many notes, and I snapped a picture of it, and I sent it to my cousin, and, I was like, "Oh, write this down, like, keep this in mind," and, I kinda do that with every venue, but especially the venues that are in Cleveland. I think those are just personal memorabilia
Yeah,
for me.
yeah. And so is there a song of yours, that you've released that's your favorite, that maybe you had a special moment while writing it or anything like that? Just a song of yours that has a special place.
Yeah, I think I would tie between the recent one, You'll Miss Me When I'm Famous, and I Hate Strangers, which was the first one. I think the first one is, it'll always hold a place because it was the first
Yeah,
one, and, it was something I wrote years before I actually did anything with it, and, just the response on that one was super cool, and The current one, I think, just going back to it representing my sound and, you get better as you go, and, if I was asked this question again in probably 6 months, I'd probably say a different song.
Yeah.
Um, but it happens, and I think it's really cool to kind of look at where you are and then reflect on where you were, especially with my music, so
Yeah. Yeah. And, having such a long period between writing a song and, like, getting it released, was there ever a moment where you were thinking of, maybe being a writer more than an artist, or was it just other instances, other things that, kept it from being released?
Sure, you know, I think the writing process, the recording process, the releasing process is a very long
Yeah.
process, and it's something that I love, and it's something I'm completely hands-on with, and for the most part, I do it by myself, and I think a lot of juggling with it is just time. It's just, me being a full-time student and going back and forth is really hard. I'm actually going to,
Yeah.
Pittsburgh Sunday, to record, the 5th song. So, that's very exciting, but it is very wild going back and forth, and there was a big gap of time between, Lose Myself, which was the 3rd song, and the one I just put out, and
Mhm.
it was just all simply due to timing. I moved out of school in Florida, I moved into school in Columbus, I was kinda shuffling, so, um, yeah.
Yeah. Well, those are all the questions I had for you today.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much for coming on, and I'll
Yeah,
be sure to keep an eye out for that 5th song.
thank you.
Where can people find you online? Any Instagram, anything like that you got that you wanna promote,
Yeah,
shout it out?
so my Instagram is Kels, Kels, Olivia Music. My website is my full thing, so it's Kelsey Olivia Music. And if anybody ever needs to reach out with me, like my emails, my contact information is in both of those places. I'm very keen about keeping contacts there. And, my Spotify, I'm just Kelsey Olivia, and Spotify is very good at updating fans and people who are listeners. So um, I'd run there.
Yeah. Alright, well, yeah, thank you again. I'll leave a link to some of that down below, and can't wait to see any new music you have coming out.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so, so much.